When you look at a postcard of a Greek island, you just see this pristine, sun-drenched landscape.
Right, yeah. Like the whitewashed buildings, the olive groves.
Exactly. Endless blue water. It looks permanent, you know? It looks peaceful.
It really does.
You'd never look at that idyllic soil and think it could just, well, swallow a child without a trace for over 3 decades.
No, you wouldn't.
Yet, that is exactly the 34-year-old mystery of British toddler, Ben Needham. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're trying to figure out how an investigation adapts when the trail goes entirely cold. We have to start by setting the scene. So it's July 24th, 1991. The Needham family has just moved from Sheffield to the Greek island of Kos.
Looking for a fresh start, right?
Yeah, exactly. Carrie, Ben's mom, is working at a local hotel while Ben's grandparents, Eddie and Christine, are renovating this remote farmhouse in the village of Iraklis.
And Ben is, what, 21 months old at this point?
Yeah, just 21 months old, little blonde-haired toddler, and he's doing what toddlers do, wandering in and out of the farmhouse while the adults are working.
Right, and the summer heat.
Yeah. Then, around 2:30 p.m., the adults realize it's gotten quiet.
The worst feeling.
The absolute worst. The toddler is gone. Now, their very first thought, which makes total sense, is that Ben's teenage uncle, Stephen, must have taken him for a quick ride on his moped.
And, that is a perfectly rational initial assumption. Human psychology dictates that we look for the most mundane, logical explanation first when we're faced with sudden stress.
Totally. You don't jump straight to kidnapping.
Exactly. But when Stephen returns without Ben, panic understandably sets in. The family frantically searches the immediate scrubland, the olive groves, the hills around the property.
And they find absolutely nothing.
Right. So they involve the local Hellenic police. And this, honestly, is where we see the first and arguably most devastating misstep of the entire investigation.
Yeah, the police response.
Instead of immediately locking down the island, the Greek police initially viewed the Needham family themselves as the primary suspect.
Which, just from a human perspective, is agonizing. You lose your child, and then you are put under a microscope.
Thoughtful.
But, why do police default to that kind of suspicion instead of instantly throwing up roadblocks?
Well, statistically speaking, in cases of missing or harmed children, the perpetrator is overwhelmingly likely to be a family member, or at least someone closely connected to the child's daily routine.
Okay, so it's a numbers game.
Mostly, yeah. From a purely procedural standpoint, investigators are trained to look inward first. However, adhering too rigidly to that statistical probability creates this profound operational blind spot.
Because they're wasting time.
Exactly. By focusing their interrogation on the family, the authorities caused a crucial delay in notifying the airports and the ferry docks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the borders of the island remained wide open during what investigators call the golden hours.
The golden hours, that's that fleeting window right after a disappearance, right? Where a kidnapper is most vulnerable to being caught.
Spot on, yes.
It's like trying to put out a house fire, but the fire department spends the first hour interrogating the homeowner while the flames spread to the woods.
That's a great way to put it.
You're losing the only window you have. Because of that delay, the subsequent 11-day search, which involved the Hellenic police, the army, fire brigade, they found nothing.
Not a shred of clothing, not a footprint.
Nothing.
Because the immediate local area yielded no clues, and those ports are left unchecked during the golden hours, it created this massive vacuum of evidence.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Right, and so do criminal investigations. A vacuum of evidence rarely stays empty for long. It naturally pushes the investigation outward. The logic becomes, if he isn't here and we didn't check the boats, he must be gone.
He must have been taken off the island.
Exactly. That geographical explosion of the search area directly caused decades of global speculation.
Yeah.
It birthed the persistent theory that Ben was abducted and smuggled off Kos.
An outward meaning, like the whole continent. Once you open the map of Europe, you aren't looking for a needle in a haystack anymore.
No, you're looking for a needle in a continent.
The numbers in the sources are staggering. Over the years, there were over 300 reported sightings of boys matching Ben's description.
300.
Yeah, people were so desperate to solve this that they started taking matters into their own hands. In 1995, there was this private investigator, Stratos Bakirtzis.
Okay, what did he do?
He claimed he found a blonde boy in a Roma camp in Salonika. The boy supposedly even said he had been given to the family.
Oh, wow.
But then, get this, in 1998, a British tourist named John Cookson spotted a blonde boy playing on a beach in Rhodes. He was so convinced it was Ben that he sneakily grabbed a hair sample by tousling the kid's hair.
You're kidding. He just walked up and grabbed the hair.
Literally just tousled his hair to get a sample.
Well, that specific detail really highlights the chaotic nature of the search. You have well-meaning citizens basically performing forensic collection out of sheer desperation.
Yeah, totally untrained people.
But in both of those highly publicized instances, the leads evaporated, right?
Yep. DNA testing conclusively ruled them out. And the families of those Greek boys easily proved parentage.
What's happening there psychologically is a textbook case of confirmation bias.
Yes.
Well, people see a blonde child in a predominantly dark-haired region. They know about this famous missing boy, and their brains just forcibly connect the dots.
Ah, I see.
The Greek police ultimately entertained 8 entirely different working theories over the years. I mean, ranging from international child trafficking rings to accidental death.
Huh.
The sheer volume of theories is a direct symptom of that initial evidence vacuum.
But then we see this jarring shift in the narrative. We jump forward to 2012 and then 2016.
Right, the pivot.
After spending decades chasing ghosts across Europe, the investigation dramatically pivots right back to that dusty farmhouse in Iraqli.
Back where they started.
Exactly. A friend of a deceased digger driver, a man named Konstantinos Dino Barkas, comes forward.
Okay.
This friend claims that Barkas confessed, or, heavily implied, that he may have accidentally run over Ben while clearing rubble with his heavy machinery on that exact day in 1991.
Which is a massive claim.
Huge. We definitely need to note that Barkas's family vehemently refutes this claim, but this tip completely redirects the police.
It brings the search back to the dirt.
Wait, if you're listening to this, you might be thinking what I'm thinking.
What's that?
If over 300 people think they saw him, and the Greek police had 8 different theories, including trafficking rings, isn't it hard to just accept he never left that farmhouse?
It's a huge leap to make.
Right. How does an investigation pivot so hard from international child trafficking to a localized construction accident after 25 years?
Well, this raises an important question about how cold cases are managed. To pivot so drastically away from the kidnapping theory, investigators knew that hearsay from a friend of a deceased man wouldn't be enough.
Right, the family wouldn't just accept that.
Nobody would. Witness memory degrades, and secondary confessions are notoriously unreliable. They needed undeniable physical proof to justify closing the book on the abduction theory.
They needed evidence.
Exactly. That necessity forced the investigation to literally dig deeper. They couldn't rely on interviews anymore. They had to rely on the earth itself. And this is what brought highly specialized geological science to the island of Kos.
So they pivot back to the dirt. But I mean, you can't just hand a few officers shovels to dig up a whole farm. How do you even begin a search like that 25 years later?
You bring in the heavy hitters of science, specifically a man named Dr. Lawrence John Donnelly.
Okay, who is he?
He is a chartered forensic geologist. He actually developed something called the Geoforensic Search Strategy. His CV shows he advised the UK National Search Advisor on Operation Ben between 2011 and 2015.
Wow, so he literally wrote the book on this.
He was the expert dictating how to read the ground. So in 2016, South Yorkshire Police, led by Detective Inspector John Cousins, go back to Kos and they excavate 800 tons of soil.
800 tons. That's monumental.
It's a massive operation. They focused heavily on an area near a tree that had been planted right around the time of the disappearance.
But what exactly is geoforensics? I mean, how is digging up 800 tons of soil different from, like, an archaeological dig?
It is vastly different. This involves ground-penetrating radar.
Wait, so it's like an X-ray of the ground?
No, it's more like an underground sonar. It sends electromagnetic pulses into the earth and measures how long they take to bounce back.
Oh, I see.
If the signal hits an air pocket or disturbed earth or a buried object, it bounces back differently. That creates an anomaly on the screen.
That's fascinating.
They also use chemical sniffers looking for volatile organic compounds associated with decomposition. They are meticulously looking for anomalies in the soil matrix that simply shouldn't be there.
And the crazy thing is, the radar actually works. They find things.
They do.
They found a piece of a leather sandal that matched the sandals Ben was wearing, and they found a yellow, dinky toy car that he was known to be playing with that day.
Yeah.
But it's not just the objects, right?
Correct. Finding a toy car is circumstantial. The real science comes in when they send these items to Professor Lorna Dawson at the Hutton Institute.
What does she do with them?
Well, think of soil like a biological hard drive. Even if a body is moved or decays completely over decades, biological fluids seep into the soil and leave a distinct chemical signature.
Like a fingerprint in the dirt.
Exactly. Dr. Dawson was basically doing data recovery on 25-year-old dirt. Her tests found, quote, chemical markers suggestive of human blood decomposition, end quote, embedded in the soil inside the toy car and on the sandal.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
Based on this highly specific chemical signature, the police formally declared their professional belief that Ben died in an accident on that site.
Which, feels like the definitive, if tragic, resolution everyone had been waiting for. The science seemed to lock in the digger-driver theory.
It did seem that way.
But forensic science is always evolving, and in 2018, the narrative fractures all over again.
Right, because further, more advanced DNA testing was conducted on that specific blood signature found on the toy car.
And what did they find?
The new test confirmed that it was indeed human blood. However, the DNA profile proved conclusively that it was not Ben Needham's blood.
Not his blood.
No. Furthermore, during those exhaustive excavations, archaeologists revealed that the site contained an ancient burial ground and numerous animal bones.
Wait, if you're listening to this, you're probably wondering how scientists can find human blood, declare a case practically solved, and then realize it's the wrong DNA.
It's a massive blow.
If that blood wasn't Ben's, whose was it? Are we looking at contamination from that ancient burial ground they found? Or did a construction worker cut his hand on the site years later and bleed onto a lost toy?
It's entirely possible.
It just opens up a frustrating new set of questions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this moment in 2018 is a profound example of the limits of forensic science. The lack of a matching DNA profile completely dismantled the certainty of the digger theory.
They lost their undeniable proof.
Exactly. The police had stated their professional belief, but the absolute scientific proof vanished into thin air. With science unable to provide closure, the entire burden of keeping the search alive fell right back onto the shoulders of Ben's family.
Which is just heartbreaking.
It really is. It's a stark reminder that while technology can excavate the earth, human persistence is what truly outlasts the limits of that technology.
And no one embodies that persistence more than Ben's mother, Carrie Needham.
Absolutely not.
In our stack of sources, we have reviews and excerpts from her 2013 memoir, simply titled Ben. It is a brutally honest look at the agony she has lived through.
I can only imagine.
She writes about the initial trauma of being suspected by the Greek police, the emotional whiplash of all those hoax sightings, and the sheer physical toll of waiting decades for an answer.
She also makes a very pointed observation in her book regarding how missing persons cases are handled at a systemic level.
Right, the comparison she makes.
Yes, she noted a stark contrast in how the British establishment and media treated her case compared to the later, highly publicized disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Okay, how so?
Carey pointed to the British class system as a major factor. While the McCann family, who were middle-class doctors, received immediate governmental backing and a massively funded police operation, Carey felt her working-class background left her fighting for every scrap of institutional support.
That's a really tough dynamic to navigate.
It is. And as we review these sources, obviously we aren't taking a side on police protocol, but we are reporting her lived experience. It illustrates how the mechanics of a search are often heavily intertwined with public perception and socioeconomic status.
Yeah, it actually took years of lobbying for South Yorkshire Police to get the Home Office funding to really dig into this case.
Exactly.
But despite those systemic hurdles, it is worth noting that Ben's case pioneered some major technological milestones in policing.
Oh, definitely.
Because he went missing at 21 months old, investigators had to figure out how to look for someone whose face was changing every single day.
Right. Toddlers grow so fast.
This case marked the very first time eFit software was used to age progress a missing child's face. They aged him to 3 years old in 1992 and then updated those images in 2000, 2003, 2007, and 2016.
They were literally trying to paint a moving target.
But how does a computer even predict what a toddler is going to look like at age 25?
Well, age progression is this complex blend of art, genetics, and forensic anthropology. They aren't just guessing.
So what are they looking at?
Forensic artists and software look at photographs of the parents and grandparents at similar ages to establish genetic baselines. They analyze cranial growth patterns, projecting how facial bones will expand, how the jawline will drop, and how cartilage in the nose and ears grows over time.
That is mind-blowing.
But the psychological weight of those images for a parent must be unimaginable. You're basically looking at a generated stranger with your lost child's eyes.
Oof, yeah. But here's where it gets really interesting. That technology brings us right up to the present day.
Right, the recent update.
According to an ITV News report dated Thursday, 19 March 2026, there is a monumental new development.
Okay.
A man has come forward who bears striking similarities to those very age progression photos we just talked about.
Wow.
He is an adopted man. He is deeply suspicious of the story his adoptive parents told him about his upbringing. And his girlfriend actually saw the EFIT photos and contacted the Help Find Ben campaign.
That is wild.
As of this report, Carrie Needham is currently awaiting the results of a definitive DNA test.
That is a true testament to the enduring power of those age progression campaigns. Even 34 years later, a single image can trigger a realization in someone who might not even know they are missing.
For Carrie, though, this process must feel like an emotional roulette.
Oh, without a doubt.
Every single time someone comes forward over the last 34 years, she has to spin the wheel, hoping for a match, but bracing herself for another soul-crushing heartbreak.
It's exhausting.
She even said in an interview that it becomes a grim process of elimination. She tries not to let her hopes run away with her anymore.
That speaks to the profound psychological toll of what therapists call ambiguous loss.
Ambiguous loss, what does that mean?
Well, how do you properly grieve when there is no physical evidence of death, but you've endured 34 years of absence? Humans are biologically and culturally wired to need resolution.
Right, we need an ending.
When a loved one dies, there are rituals, funerals, burials that help the mind process the finality of it. Ambiguous loss completely denies the brain that processing phase.
So you're just stuck.
It is a frozen, suspended grief. You can't move forward because the person might walk through the door tomorrow.
Wow.
It highlights exactly why the pursuit of definitive knowledge, whether through an 800-ton excavation or a simple mouth swab for DNA in 2026, is so universally human. We inherently need to know the end of the story.
When you look back at the incredible journey of this deep dive, we've traveled from the frantic, confused early hours on a Greek island where a crucial window was missed.
To the development of cutting-edge geoforensic excavations.
Exactly. To the pioneering use of age progression software all the way to a DNA test pending right now. It is a story about the evolution of criminal investigation. But at its core, it is about a mother who simply refuses to let the world forget her son.
Think about the sheer amount of energy, technology, and human emotion poured into the soil of that single farmhouse and coast.
It's immeasurable.
We've used ground-penetrating radar, chemical data recovery, anthropology, and pure human grit to comb over that land. It makes you wonder, when a physical location is scoured for 35 years and yields nothing definitive, does the landscape itself swallow the truth, or are we simply looking at the wrong patch of earth entirely?
That is a haunting thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the disappearance of Ben Needham.
Thanks for listening.
We encourage you to keep questioning the world around you, to look closer at the landscapes you think you know, and we will see you next time.